Hey there, and welcome to the AI Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have Adam Martin on the podcast. How are you doing, Adam?
Hi, very glad to be here. Thank you.
Glad to have you with us. Glad to have you with us. And our usual first question is: tell us all about your technology origin story, how you got into tech and computers and those sorts of things.
So I think my one's going to be a bit unusual. Um, I have recently developed the confidence to be open about this one, which is I'm frankly a bit of a dumbass when it comes to this stuff. I fell into computer science because maths and computer science were basically trivial for me. And so it was an easy ride to get into university doing a computer science degree. I didn't really want to do computer science. My only interest in computers was playing games on them.
Mm,
And it had been that for a decade before I went to uni. Um, I had tried learning to program when I was 12 and I couldn't understand it at all. It made no sense. I tried again when I was 15 and I understood about half of it. So at 15, I managed to get the hang of for loops finally and understand what was going on. But a lot of stuff I was trying to do, I couldn't understand. Like my brain just couldn't handle it. And then by the time I got to uni and we did it all over again on the computer science course, I found actually it was pretty easy to understand. So I
mm,
think that was
mm.
just a brain development thing. But it wasn't the thing I would have chosen. It wasn't the direction I would have gone in. And my interest in technology has always been uh, what can I do with it? What can it do for me? What can it change about my life and my world? It's never been technology for technology's sake,
Mm.
and that's often put me at odds with other people who were much more motivated by technology for technology's sake. So a bit unusual.
Yeah, no, interesting, interesting. Although, great to hear that like you found maths and computer science easy. Woof. No, great stuff. And so, that's sort of the way in. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people we speak to, I mean, myself included, were quite well getting into programming at those stages of 12 and 15. Although I was also very into games, and I look back and wish I'd got further in, like past just the sort of basic programming language and into the machine code that other people seem to get further into. I do also really relate to what you say about like you're interested in how can it change or have an impact. I do also struggle with the kind of I I'm less interested in the technology than the technology's sake. I'm very interested in the technology and how it can have an impact. But yeah, tell us about the story on from there. You've done the degree. How has your sort of technology career evolved since then?
So I'm also quite a stubborn and sometimes bitter person, and I did not like Microsoft Windows in the 90s. I was quite distraught that Windows seemed to destroy every other piece of software that was better and that we had more value from. And so I became somewhat obsessed by the time I was going through uni with how do I make sure, if I'm going to carry on working in the computer industry, um, how do I make sure I never work on a project which is the better software, the better solution, the better product, the thing that everyone wants, but fails in the market because it's
Mm,
destroyed by someone like Microsoft. And by destroyed, I don't mean maliciously, I mean just outsold, literally
mhm,
that. So
mm,
this is, I saw this as largely an internal problem of Microsoft's competitors rather than anything wrong with Microsoft per se.
right.
Just Microsoft, just as far as I could see, they outmarketed everyone, and everyone else's marketing was just embarrassingly bad by contrast. So I tried to, in the first sort of 10 years of my post uni career, step back and forth between um, roles in as a software engineer, roles in engineering management, and roles outside engineering management, trying to get a handle on how do you make sure you're building or doing, and in a very vague sense, the right thing that's going to actually get you and your company and your products and your work ultimately to the point where people see it and use it. Because the greatest fear for me was that we'd invent like happened in the Douglas Adams books. You invent world peace and you have the sudden solution to world peace in your mind, and then the whole planet gets blown up and no one ever gets to benefit from it. And I thought that'd be the greatest tragedy that you come up with some great discovery, but nobody knows because you are in the wrong place, the wrong time, and you just can't explain it to anyone. Um, and that I thought it must be about marketing for a long time. And I gradually came to see, well, it wasn't marketing, it was product with a
Mm.
capital P. So I got much more interested in product and design. I'd already always been interested in it, but I had no confidence in it. And just to cap this off, where that ended up was late 2000s, mid 2000s. I was working in the games industry and I was working in massive online games. And there was this company, IMVU, I think it was IMVU, yeah, that was a tangentially massive online game. So I knew of them. And there was this guy, Eric Rees, who was the CTO there. And he started blogging about where he thought they'd gone wrong as a games company and how they should have built their products differently. I was following that, and then he started writing a book. And so I was reading the book, and it was so this would have been I think 2006, 2007 maybe. And I felt that the whole lean startup book he was writing was a much more smart, deep, accurate, precise, and concise explanation of all the things I've been muddling my way to understanding with tech for all those years. And so it became the hinge point of, from that point on, my obsession became product in the lean startup sense and the idea of MVPs and the idea of iteration and the idea overall of you need to find what is the thing that if you had perfect hindsight in 10 years' time, that your customers and users actually wanted from you, and then do the smallest amount of excess work in order to end up building that thing. It's quite a mouthful, but I'd say that is the core of all of the lean startup and all of the product market fit and all of this. And it was, with hindsight, the thing I had been looking for all in my entry into tech. And I feel the thing that is still, what are we now, 20 years later, missing or misunderstood by so many teams, so many companies from the bottom all the way up to the top. And it underpins everything that we or every opportunity we have, every missed opportunity, every taken opportunity. So it's become my unifying thing that's kept me in technology.
Wonderful. Yes, yes. No, I'm familiar with the lean startup. Although um, it's I think you articulated it very well. It's so easy to fall off that razor's edge, maybe a bit like enlightenment or something. It's yeah, the yes, but no, I think that as a guiding star, that seems wonderful. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I think what's so difficult about cleaving to it is that we all have privilege into insight into kind of what we believe about, oh, this should be true and this should be true and this should be true, and you kind of have to relentlessly attack your assumptions about the way people want to work or what they need, or even not necessarily believing exactly what they've told you in order to get down to something that's really going to actually stick.
So, Rob Fitzpatrick, you definitely owe me more coffees at this point because I'm about to try and push even more sales of your book. The
Uh-huh.
Mom Test. I have given so many people copies of this book. The Mom Test. It was Rob and Salim Virani had been working for years with startups and doing MVPs and lean startup and so on. And coming out of their consultancy work, Rob wrote the Mom Test, and it is a beautifully small, simple, concise, um, but idiot-proof guide to cut through most of the, uh, in the nicest way, slightly waffly, slightly academic discussion that's around the place,
Mm,
and give you just this is the stuff that if you get everything else wrong, just get this right and you will be fine. And
mm,
I mean, I wasn't one of their clients when they were doing consulting, but I knew them back then, and or at least I knew Sal, and my impression was they were extremely good at what they did. They had extremely deep understanding, but this led to also being very good at concisely explaining, yeah, you don't need to understand that, but you do need to get this one thing right. And I have used the Mom Test with, I don't know, 30 teams, maybe more, and many hundreds of people. And I have seen it transform people's understanding. People who knew all the words from Lean Startup, but didn't quite get the essence of it, or they got the essence. But what's happened a lot to senior product managers and chief product officers is they got the essence, but they couldn't put it into practice for
Mhm.
some of the reasons you were describing. And they could sort of put it into practice, but they really struggled to stick with it and keep it in practice. And the mom test, reductive though it is and overly simplistic, and it's got many flaws, but it's so good at letting people go, this is what I need to do. This is where I shut up. And this is how I shut up. And I think that was one of the best bits of it. It told you how to shut up.
Right, right. Well, and so I mean, I was hearing that was it. I'm probably getting this wrong. It almost sounded like you were saying the mum test, and that's like give the piece of software to your mum and see if she can use it or what have you. But this is it MON the mo
MOM, because it's
oh,
American
oh
spelling.
it is that it is
So the way it's described is, if you go to your mom and you say to her, "I've got this brilliant idea for an app. Would you buy it?"
mm.
There's only one answer you're getting. The answer is yes, of course, it's the best thing ever. I think all my friends will buy it as well. They'll totally pay money for it. Yes, darling, of course. And Rob's argument is broadly what she's really saying, what she's hearing is, "Do you love me?" And what she's responding with is, "Yes, I do."
Right,
Whereas what you're hearing is, "My product is brilliant and an independent person has verified it, and it's not just me in my head." And
right.
his argument is that is fundamentally a major problem that many people make. And he picks your mom as the worst case, most extreme example of this. And he says every colleague you've got, every ex-colleague, every friend, every contact, to a lesser extent, they
Yeah.
have exactly the same problem. But it's just really obvious with your mom. And his argument in the book is, if we can figure out how to ask our own mothers, would you use this product? Would you buy it? And get useful information,
Mm.
then everyone else is golden. Everyone else is easy. And so that's his quest in the book.
Right. So it's about how to ask questions and effectively, get real answers to them as opposed to polite or friendly or,
Yeah,
like someone trying to like sort of save your ego by telling you what you want to hear.
yeah. And then to navigate the sea of all the problems that causes and the challenges. And a huge part of that is, how do I shut up and listen when they start telling me the bit that I need to hear, but I don't want to hear?
How to listen. Yeah. And so, well, wonderful. And we'll get maybe links to those books in the show notes, so you can get more coffee from your friends. But so, and so what does your technology, like day to day look like now in terms of, I mean, you're going from team to team, helping them understand this sort of stuff?
So I'm in a transitional phase. We had a baby recently, so I stopped doing full-time work. I will go back to full-time work this year, but
Mm,
in the transition, I've been doing, so I used to do what's called fractional CTO work,
mm,
which I loved and it was great, but I did that for some years, but I stopped doing it because I kind of, something else I didn't say earlier, I'll come back to if there's time, but I've found that I really like building things and
mm.
making things. And if I stop building things at a certain level, I get a need to go and do that. So if I stop building physical things for a couple of years, I get more and more need to go and do some pottery or something like that. If I stop building software, I end up taking on weekend and evening projects to write small games, etc. But one of those is, if I stop building teams or building companies, I get itchy feet to go and
Mm.
somehow build an organization. I end up building a community or a free thing or something like that. And the problem with fractional CTO work is that it got me more and more. I missed working inside corporates, which is something people don't normally say, but there's
Mhm.
some impact and scale of your building there. So I didn't really want to go back to fractional CTO work, but I spent the last year and a half doing consulting stroke fractional stuff stroke whatever people in my network had wanted, in terms of former CTO, experienced at being a fractional CTO, very good at coming in and solving a lot of difficult problems quickly. I'm phrasing it like that because if you actually look at what I've done, it's been AI, 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 AI.
Mhm.
And I just want to be clear, I did not set out to say I am becoming another AI consultant, because just like everyone, I get spammed non-stop by these Muppets.
Nah.
But in practice, I've been called in to do digital transformation, AI. I've been called, but I've been called to come in to do coaching of executives and of teams, and I've been called in to do training all around AI. I've been called in to do problem solving and cost savings, AI, and I've been called in to do revenue growth, AI. So you get in there and you go, well, actually, you say AI, but this is really a classic digital transformation project or something like that. But on the surface, every single one of them gets labeled with AI or
Mm.
budgeted as AI or etc. So it's been a lot of AI, and that's not just because it's what people wanted. It's because I was fortunate enough to know Josh Wall, who introduced a whole bunch of us to LLMs back in 2022 before anyone else had really got noticed them. And I was putting them into production in 2023, which got me a head start on everyone else of realizing what they're capable of. Um, so I spent a lot of time with them, and it's just become a lot of the last year and a half has been helping other companies, organizations, executives, and even just individuals within teams, line managers, everyone up and down the org to see they're not being ambitious enough with AI. They don't understand how to use it. Most of the stuff you read online is indeed hype, but the reality isn't hype at all. And a lot of the people are doing the stuff right and doing it best are just not telling anyone what they're doing. The kind
Mm.
of person who's going out and doing a YouTube video is doing the YouTube video because what they've got to say is meaningless drivel. Or I mean, that's a bit mean, but in general, it didn't work for them, but they needed to somehow make some money out of the time they spent. There are obviously thousands of people publishing amazing stuff on YouTube, but they're being drowned by the millions of people who are just regurgitating each other's stuff. And back to the marketing problem, the people who actually know what they're talking about are not the ones who are good at self-promotion and marketing. So I'm not trying to put any of those people down. I'm just trying to say that is the environment in which each of us is currently operating. And so the surge of news and information is very misleading about how to use AI, when to use it, when not to use it, where it goes wrong, how to improve it. And I think that's the gap that I've been spending a lot of time helping other people find their way through.
Yeah, well, that's you've already at least half answered the next question, which is how is AI affecting your life and work? And I'd love to hear more about the work side, but also as we often talk about on the podcast, outside of work, things that like I mean, what have I done recently? I mean, I've been recently using it. I mean, I study Japanese and using the photo app within ChatGPT, I'm having like I've got like a Japanese textbook, and I can photo that, and it does extracts the Japanese text, and then gives me pronunciation guide. I mean, and all sorts of different little things that are like really really handy. It's just something I'm doing outside of work. But yeah, I'd love to hear as much as you're willing to share about
Sure.
how the new AI, as it does seem to be pretty new, is affecting both your life and work.
So I think I just very briefly want to. I have a 5 minute spiel I give. I'm not going to give it here, but 5 minute spiel I give to everyone I do any kind of meeting with on like any formal meeting, which is to bring them up to speed on the things you have to know, the
Hmm.
principles underlying it. There's one principle I'm just going to name check here, which is that all of LLMs, the only reason they're valuable and the thing that's kicked off everything is that they are pattern recognition engines and pattern extrapolation engines. Uh, they are more than that, but that is if you can only do one thing, that's the one thing. So we've never had any technology like that ever in the history of mankind. And we are fumbling our way to if the tool you have is a pattern extrapolator, what are the uses of that tool? And how do you fit it into the ecosystem of your existing tools, your existing toolbox? And that explains a lot of the false starts and funny directions, but also a lot of the sudden surges ahead. Um, and I think it's one of the big challenges of a lot of the stuff that we've learned in our careers is not being prescriptive or predictive, sorry, of where to use AI and how to use it, because our careers are based on a whole different stack of tools and technologies that just don't behave the same way as an LLM does. So there is that inherent challenge. Given that, as a background, sorry, I should have taken a pause there. At the moment, I see we talk a bit about there being parallel universes where people who are at the cutting edge of technology are like, but I've got all this technology. How come everyone isn't doing this? And it used to be, say, 15 years ago, people with 5G internet, or 4G, I guess it was 15 years ago, going, I can run a video call off my phone. I'm sitting next to someone who can't even, who's using a flip phone, and how are we living in these different worlds? I think at the moment AI has now kicked into, there are three parallel universes. So there's the universe of everyone who uh, by now, who a couple of years ago wasn't using ChatGPT, but by now everyone is using ChatGPT, and they're getting good stuff out of it. Um, I would say, and normally I don't say there's any particular difference between the model vendors, but you've got Claude, and Claude.ai, they're the equivalent of ChatGPT. One big difference it's got with ChatGPT is that if you drop a screenshot into it, it's very good at visual reasoning. So one of the things that I see a lot of in Universe One is people discovering just how powerful it is to don't copy and paste text from the screen, take a screenshot. Don't ask for a redesign of a page or a poster or a website. Take a screenshot and ask for a new page or poster or website, and ask it to just visually reason about it. And with a bit of clever prompting, you get incredible results. So that's Universe One. And then you've got Universe 2, which is where people have adopted things like Cursor. And I both love and hate Cursor, but for all its faults, it continues to improve, and it continues to outperform pretty much everything else. So when I say Cursor, obviously it is known as a code editor. We stopped using it primarily as a code editor 18 months ago. I've been using it for document editing and writing proposals and things for the last year and a half, because it was built as a code editor, but the reality is how it works is it's a information indexing, retrieval, predictive. I've got 1,000 documents. I've been asked to edit one of them. I don't know which one it is or where it is, and it has related effects elsewhere. That doesn't restrict yourself to code, so it works brilliant with documents. So you've got people in this universe where they're starting to use Cursor for other things, and they're starting to use the agent built into Cursor for other things, and they're starting to use Claude Code for other things. Because Claude Code, again, an agent built for coding, the clue is in the name, but we've all been using it for non-coding things for well over a year now, and it's brilliant at non-coding tasks. Great, all of that. But then you've got Universe 3, and until recently, there were really only those two. And the gains you get from Universe 2 are very big. But you now got Universe 3, where, so it used to be, I'd say 6 months ago, if you said to me, what's the ideal time for you to, if you send a command or a request or a query or a conversation thing to an AI agent, how long are you hoping to wait for the reply? 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I'd have said less than a second, zero point 0.1 seconds. And that was rare, or you had to run your own custom infra and your own private LLM. Normally, you were waiting 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds for the reply to stream through, sometimes longer, sometimes 50 or 60 seconds. And so I would have said less than a second, because when it was less than a second, the way you work with the AI fundamentally changes. Instead of it being do something, wait, read, do something else, wait, read, it becomes more of a flow. Great. But what's changed is I now say the ideal you should be waiting for an agent after you ask it to do something. The ideal is 8 to 10 hours, really, 12, 14 hours. Because once you start figuring out how to change your life and your work so that the agent stuff you're setting off is, it's 5 p.m. and I'm going home, off you go, agent, see you in the morning, and you come back tomorrow morning and 2 full days of work have happened in your absence. That completely changes so many things. And so that is where I'm focused at the moment, on things in my life to change around that, rethinking how I design and schedule and run projects. And I've just been working on an open source project to facilitate this. The one I've done is very basic, very simple, but also quite excitingly useful. And all it is a document editing. It's like Notion or Google Docs, but it has asymmetric access for humans versus AI. So humans see Notion, AI see a completely different surface. And you get things like you're sitting there as a human editing the document and co-editing with other humans, and you've got your cursors clicking around and you're typing stuff in. but you see little flashes which are an AI is reading this paragraph, an AI is thinking about editing that paragraph. And we can capture all that because this asymmetric surface means we can see what the agent is requesting while it builds up to doing its next task. And I think that is, for me, in summary, is the most exciting point at the moment. There's lots of very exciting points, but one of the most exciting ones is how are we going to do human AI collaboration going forwards? And not just one person with one chatbot, but when you've got five agents, one of which is a chatbot, two of which are something else, one of which is a coding agent, or about 20 of them. You're working with a team of people. There's 10 other people in your team. You each fired off three or four agents. Well, now you've got a swarm of 40 agents, to some extent, serving your team rather than serving you as individuals. I think that one of the exciting points is what is the data requirement there? What is the collaboration surface? And how on earth are we going to make that bearable for us and useful and productive? And just the final point on that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about is I hate AI slop. There's tons of it. It's terrible. I could talk about that for hours nonstop. But we keep seeing examples of where AI is making things worse for humans. Cheaper for the provider, but worse for the end users. And what we really should be doing is making AI better for humans. And I think the gap between worse for humans and better for humans is actually really small in terms of what we have to do to bridge that gap. But obviously, the value is completely transformative because you turn it from a vicious circle of we're all going down a dystopian well into a virtuous circle where we head for Ian Banks's culture novels or something like that.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting way you describe it in terms of the three universes. I mean, I think going back to something that we were talking about, pre-show, about how, the UI of Zoom has changed. And one of the things that I wrestle with is, so many places where the AI seems to be helping us with, like, as you say, it's sort of a pattern extrapolator, all of these things. I kind of I ask myself, is it really helping, or or was it that I mean, we can like sort of laugh at middle managers, like we were talking about, oh, like, we've got to keep these UI designers off the streets by constantly reiterating on the UIs, and you were sort of extending that to say, well, actually, it's the middle managers needing to show that they've changed something. You know, if putting the AI in the hands of some of these people, okay, right, they can now produce the reports or produce the new design layouts or whatever it happens to be, more easily, extrapolating from the existing patterns. Was the thing that they were doing actually that necessary in the first place? And I mean, I think I'm not trying to just say, oh yeah, I'm doing great stuff and other people are not, because I think that they're for all of us, and it comes back to the lean startup, the mum test. Are you creating something that moves the needle, and has the AI helped you do that? And I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I use AI all day. I've doubled down completely on Cursor. I'm using Cursor. I mean, you mentioned this thing of like allowing the agent at 5 p.m. to go off and do 2 full days of work. And I had periods in the last 6 months where I was letting agents, while I was at lunch, grinding on things. I find myself almost sort of like burnt out trying to review all of the stuff that they had produced, and found that I was losing touch with some of the core elements of what I was working on that was getting in the way of me effectively collaborating with other humans who needed to understand how to use it. So I've kind of like I'm the it just seems to be actually measuring the real you know impact on, are people actually moving the needle in ways that we care about more effectively now that we have AI. I mean, it just seems are you, I mean, are we at risk of just convincing ourselves that because this nice pattern stuff is there and we're sort of floating in this sea of great stuff, what I mean, what would you point to as something that the AI has really done for you that, actually moved the needle in a way that not just you might care about?
Okay, I'll try and answer that. I'll also give a quick commentary on some of what you said. If we let Google and everyone like Google, but Google was the first, they're the oldest, continue to set the pattern for what software we use, I think the worst version of what you've said becomes true. Google themselves as an organization on the product side have been aggressively dumbing down every single product they can get their hands on for decades. And it's been to the detriment of all of us. And I've known a lot of Google engineers, still friends with a lot of them, in the nicest possible way. There is a Google arrogance to anyone in that company, which is Google knows best and the rest of us are dumb. And I'd contrast that with, or not contrast, I'd add that to the Design of Everyday Things book by the guy who ended up being senior designer at
Yeah, Don Norman, is
Apple.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, where he basically says, we all blame ourselves when the software fails, but actually we should be blaming the software. And normally it's bad UX, bad design, and bad assumptions. And normally it's dumbed down today software that drags us down. So a concrete example of that is LinkedIn is now basically 99% AI slop. Why is it 99% AI slop? Well, fundamentally, it's because someone at LinkedIn decided to add a button that everyone was forced to see, which was press this button to auto-generate AI slop and post it to your feed. And you couldn't get rid of the button. It just sat there flashing at you until you pressed it. So they literally filled LinkedIn with AI slop because they made that the path of least resistance for people. So if we allow these organizations, they're not doing it maliciously, but they're doing it, I think, accidentally to shape the software that we use and the way we use it. That is the path we go down. But if we step outside of that, then we have a much happier path for all of us. So then you said you were asking, and what's an example of where it's made a big positive difference to me? And I had one off the top of my head, and I've lost it while I was saying. The I think that's the linking thing for me is I often say to people, oh yeah, so yeah, the yardstick I have for helping other people find these things, which might help me remember what I was going to say, is I say to them, look, take all the stuff you think you're doing with AI or you want to do with AI and put it into two buckets, one of two buckets. Is it giving you approximately a 2 times improvement in something or approximately a 20 times improvement in something? And what often happens is everything people are doing is closer to 2 times than 20 times. And my argument is if it's close to 2 times, you're not actually using AI effectively. You're going down that route of you're clicking the LinkedIn auto-generate a post button because it wasn't that useful. I mean, it's definitely a lot more powerful, but it comes with downsides. And how do you find these 20x things? One of the really interesting things that I've seen a lot of is, especially working with corporations, is everyone's talking about cost savings. It's incredibly difficult to save 20 times your costs. So it's basically impossible in most cases. But it's surprisingly easy to gain 20 times your upside. So it's like investing in shares. The upside on buying a stock is infinite. The downside, if you're short selling it, is very finite. It can only go down to zero. It can't go below zero. In most cases, there are exceptions. So you need to focus on where is there a infinite, unbounded upside to a thing, and I can deploy AI on it. And that pulls you into the realm of where can I use AI's hallucinations for good? Where can I focus on the AI's creativity and its future stargazing and its ability to invent things I'd never even imagined? But it's your example about like burnout, or I don't know if you use that word, but I've experienced it and others have. If burnout, they generate too much for us to review, there's too much for us to understand. Well, partly that's because we were constraining them to a world of producing outputs in the way we'd expect another person to. If you start, one of the things I've doing, and one of the reasons I focused on this, I started building this open source document system, was maybe it's me. Maybe I am giving it the wrong tasks to do, and I'm thinking about them wrongly. So I would previously have said, I need you to, I don't know, here is a spec, I need you to implement it. And as I got better at writing the spec, it took less and less time for it to implement it. And that wasn't very helpful. I was like, well, okay, but here's a whole app and design the app and build the app and multiple agents. And what came out the other end was too big for me to review. So now I'm on to more of the realms of I'm starting it to say, uh, create a process for building an app and document it, but create summaries that I can read and I'm capable of understanding. And when it's done that, I'm not actually going to read them. I'm then going to say to it, now you read what's there and let's explore, is this going to build a good app or a bad app? So I'm getting more and more. One of the things I'm doing is getting a lot more meta about it. Um, but uh, sorry, I was trying to come towards one of the concrete examples. Um, I'll give you an example of one that I do as a startup I'm doing with a friend, where we've been doing a lot of exploration into customer conversations. So it's a concrete. I can give you an example of a concrete place that this is fixing things for people. You stick AI with real-time voice into your flow where you're talking to customers, and suddenly you are able to talk to all of your customers. I have a friend who did this with their sales work. They had they have something like 200 target companies. They have very specialist software, and they were phoning them manually. And they realized if they got the AI to do the phone calls, and they've got lots of information on those 200 companies, so it's quite personalized. It's not as just offensive slop. They could phone all 200 of those companies in parallel instantly, have a detailed conversation, read the outputs, and their salespeople could spend their time thinking about the output of those transcripts rather than making more sales calls. So that's the kind of transformative step that I look for now, is how can we actually change the nature? If I'm going to get the AI to do anything, how can I do something which it will change the nature of what I do next? If I get the AI to do something where I'm going to do the same work tomorrow as I did today, then I try to reject that and push that off as a thing. I'm sorry, I
Interesting.
didn't remember the concrete example I had in mind.
No, but well, maybe that will come later. Why don't we often just going through
Yeah.
it in a different direction, it'll pop back. Let's jump through. Our next question is what's your approach to leadership? Obviously, you've been in
Ah,
leadership roles. You're now leading as well as leading humans. You're leading AIs. How do you make sure you're getting everybody pulling in the same direction?
I accidentally did the smartest possible thing for this, completely accidentally. I went and did teacher training, and I'm a qualified school teacher.
Mm.
Um, and school teaching, certainly in the UK, is a very high pressure crash course in psychology and psychiatry and people management and team management at scale. You have 30 screaming teenagers who are heavily motivated to hate you and undermine you at every stage and try and get out of that room. And the secret they don't know is that you're legally not allowed to block them from leaving the room, but also you're legally required to keep them in the room. And if they realize that, they'd all just get up and walk out because you literally can't stop them. So you have this very weird set of psychological things going on. And you get a huge amount of training in what matters to people and what matters to people in difficult situations. Because obviously, when everyone's happy and the class is behaving, you say to people, sit down and get on with your work, metaphorically speaking. It's when someone punches someone else in the face and then it all kicks off, or someone their parents are dying of cancer, and so they're completely off the wall in terms of anger issues and so on, and they're screaming at you and breaking the windows and so on. But it's not really their fault. This is that last phrase, it's not really their fault, has become the key to all my leadership stuff, because it was something I was thirsting for, but didn't have the training or the understanding for through my career. But after I'd done the teacher training and qualified, one of the key things is they say to you, there is never any situation where any child does not fundamentally want to be in the classroom and learning. The reality is that every individual child has a different set of external factors and internal factors which are preventing them from fulfilling that underlying wish. And if you're a perfect teacher, one of your goals in the classroom is to figure out what the set of overlying and distracting and undermining issues are and fix each and every one of them, or enough of them, so that the child's underlying desire to learn comes through. And it rephrases the things, the sort of 20th century theory about type A people and type B people and people who want to work versus people who don't want to work. The teacher training theory is no, there is only one type of people. Every single person is maybe not 1 in a million is different for genetic reasons, but pretty much 99.99% of people all have the same positive, happy outlook on life or want to. But people's lived lives, going back even as far as childhood and terrible things that happened to them, like I've worked with people whose parents were killed in front of them when they were children. And obviously, 30 years later, that person is still not entirely in the same universe as the rest of us. And so, and the teacher training pushes you to try and find that in every individual. Which is incredibly stressful, incredibly difficult, incredibly painful. Teachers do an amazing job. But I've found that them working in corporate environments since then has become easy
Mm.
and corporate leadership. Because if you have that confidence to believe this person who's being a total screaming asshole in front of my face, this person who's stabbed me in the back 3 times in the last week, and I know they're just in this meeting, they're looking for an excuse to stab me in the back again. But you have the fundamental belief that they don't really want to do that. They think they want to do that, but they don't really want to. It gives you that power and that conviction and that what's the word? Not incentive, but like an incentive. But it gives you that thirst for or that self-belief of I can figure that out. I can figure out enough of it to get them out of the bad place they're in. And once they're in a slightly less bad place, they'll probably stop stabbing me in the back. And then you can do all the normal stuff you would expect to do with them.
Oh, yeah. Great stuff. Yeah, no, well, I'll remember that next time my boss stabbed me in the back. Fantastic. Great conversation. I'm gonna. There's only so much time left. But let's get through the last three questions. With making the best use of the time. Next question is your most exciting tech hack, and so that could be something in work or something outside that. We've had in the past folks telling us about using the AI voice mode on ChatGPT to have back and forth conversations as they walk to work. Is there what is the it could be just like I've downloaded a new operating system. What are you most excited about recently as your like sort of a mini tech hack that you could share?
Um, I have dozens and dozens of, and then none of them are really big. But I think the one that I would pick right now, it's a bit old, but it stuns me that not everyone is doing it, which is Docker containers.
Mm,
Every single person, the idea that even the idea in 2015, 2016, let alone 2026, that there is anyone anywhere who starts a project on their machine not inside a container is insane. There is no good reason. There's basically no reason at all for not running everything inside its own container. And this applies to all your coding projects because suddenly versioning nightmares over your version of Python versus my version of Python all vanishes. All that time and effort that we waste is gone. But it also applies to security. So this is why I think this is now becoming a hot topic. There's been a bunch of things recently of supply chain attacks on AI software and on NPM itself. And looking at the hacks after they've happened and what was being exfiltrated, it's doing stuff like scanning your local machine for API keys, for passwords, for logins, for Bitcoin wallets, for anything it can find that could help them to hack your main machine later. Well, the idea that you were running any code, let alone AI or an AI agent, naked on your machine, again, it's just absurd. You should have been running that in a container. Now, there are caveats such as Docker out of the box is insecure and they have still failed to fix the fact that they run it as root by default. And if you don't run it as root, you have to jump through hoops. So I accept that there are annoyances on this. But if all you did was to run it as root in its default mode, you are at least getting a vastly better security setup. And you're getting all these things where suddenly all your colleagues can one click run the same code as you. If it reproduces on one place, it reproduces in every place, et cetera, et cetera. So I then find that then reflects through into day-to-day life. So because everything I've got runs in its own containers, and I have many containers at any given time, when I want to go from my desktop to my laptop, I don't have to worry because I know I'm just going to spin up a copy of the same container pulled from GitHub and I've got everything I was doing. when I have to work for someone else's company and work on site, I stick anything I'm doing in separate containers and I can run it on their hardware. And if they don't want to give me hardware, I can run it on my hardware. And if they change their mind, I can move it from one to the other. All of this is theoretically sort of possible if you're using Git, but not really in practice. But with a container, it becomes trivial, brain dead obvious. And then when you get into what am I going to do with AI, you start to say every AI significant piece of work, you can spin the AI up in its own container. And suddenly your management of the work they're doing, especially when you have swarms of agents, becomes much safer, much easier to stop them screwing things up, treading on each other's toes. If one of your 10 agents accidentally deletes something fundamental to the project, it's fine, you just kill the container and restart it.
Brilliant. Yeah, great tech hack there. Well, wonderful. So we're in this exciting world. I mean, you've already told us about the three parallel universes and finding the 20x and all of those things. There's no crystal ball, but what do you see the future being for AI? Are we going to have sentient machines that basically humans can live a life of leisure, or which way is it going to go the next 3, 5, 7 years, 150? What do you think?
Um, I'm terrified that we're heading for a dystopian nightmare where we all work for Jeff Bezos.
Oh yeah.
Have you played the game You Are Jeff Bezos?
I don't know that I have.
It's an amazing game. It's a very simple, crappy text game. It starts with you wake up, you look in the mirror, you are Jeff Bezos. What are you going to do? You have $150 billion. Option one, pay off the US national debt. He goes, oh, now you've only got 50 billion or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
national
yeah,
debt's
yeah.
actually bigger than that, but it goes down this list. And while you're playing the game, the other billionaires start tracking you down and trying to assassinate you because you're making them look bad. But the game is a wonderful exploration of just how many things one billionaire could do if they chose to. The reality is not just to knock on Jeff Bezos, but a whole bunch of them. They're not really doing anything good with their wealth. And they are happily trying to drive us into a future where we are all slaves working to in their fiefdoms, and the AI controls everything and they control the AI. So that's one future that I'm very afraid of. There's a different future. There's a friend of mine when I worked in the games industry who's now a senior executive, so I won't name him because I don't want to out him or embarrass him. When he found that I'd been doing a project where I was teaching children to program, this was before I became a teacher, but I did work with a lot of schools in training children in how to program quickly and effectively. He said, "What the hell are you doing? This is the worst possible thing you could do." And I was like, "What? What?" And we have similar sense of humor. So I was like, "Okay, where are you going with this?" And he went, "There is no more destructive force in this universe than a 15-year-old boy with spare time on his hands. If you train them to be better with computers and better at programming, they're going to burn civilization just to see what it looks like." And I thought about it for a moment and then decided actually that is a very worthwhile thing to do with your life, because that is probably our single greatest protection against the dystopian future, is the next generation of people with more at stake, which is their entire future lives, but also more freedom to think outside the box because they're not constrained by the lives that we've lived and the expectations we've had. If we are empowering them, and it doesn't just have to be teenagers, it can be people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, anyone, any age, but primarily you're empowering the next generation of new people to leverage AI and to extend it and to do things that we haven't thought of yet collectively. Then I think we are very likely to head towards the Ian Banks culture novels version, which is obviously, in my mind, the only acceptable future. I'm assuming most people have heard, or not most, but many people have heard of the culture novels, where AI is a benevolent force that looks after humanity and helps us at every step.
Yeah,
Great, that's what we should have.
yeah, it's one of my favorite books. Yes, what an author. Wow, the future is now. And fi our final question, we ask, what does it all mean? The life, the universe, and everything. Clearly, the answer given, 42. But and this it can seem like a big intimidating question about is this an illusion, a dream? Are we like programs in the mind of God? But at another level, it's just a question of like what does life mean to you? What gets you up in the morning? Where do you want to get to? What meaning do you want to make?
Such an easy question. Um, Uh, um, my mentor, who I will name, Dallas Snell, who was in the game, he's much older than me, but is in the games industry long before me and built some of the, or oversaw some of the biggest hit computer games of the 90s. Um, Lived a long and exciting life with lots of wealth and parties and all sorts of interesting things and multiple marriages. And after it all, he came to me and everyone else and said, "Look, I've figured it out. The answer to that question we've all been looking for." I won't go into the details of the stuff he's been through in his life, but he's had a fairly wild life. And he said that what it comes down to is, he said, it's all about piles of bananas. We're just apes, and we want a bigger pile of bananas. But actually, that's what we need to survive. But that's not what gives us fulfillment. What gives us fulfillment is being able to find another ape, point them at my pile of bananas, and say, look how big my pile of bananas is. Uh, and it's not that you want to show off that you have bananas in particular. He said the key bit is you need to be witnessed by someone else. You need to share. You need someone else to see you. You need to be seen. You need to experience connection with other people. And he has spent, what is it? I think the last 20 years now, just dedicated to that. Having like I've tried so many things in my life, but the only thing that gives true pleasure and fulfillment is seeing other people sharing my joy. And that's it. I
Brilliant.
think it's a very good one. And he's spent a lot more time thinking about this than I have.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, perfectly well, wonderful answers and amazingly concise. Adam, it's been so great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Where can people get in touch with you if they want to chat? And have you got things coming up that you want to direct people to?
Yeah, getting hold of me is slightly difficult because I have a LinkedIn that got locked down by LinkedIn and I can't unlock it. People can message me, but I can't. You can't connect to me. I have an email address which is long and complicated, which I can give to you, but
Yeah,
it's,
we can get it in the show
yeah,
notes.
I'm very happy for people to directly email me. That's absolutely fine. Things people should come to me about at the moment. If anyone is wanting to do stuff with documents, with AI and human collaboration, there's this open source project. I'm using it myself. It's still got quite a few bugs, but I'm starting to onboard beta testers now, and get other people using it. And I get no benefit from it, but I think other people, I get benefit myself using it, but I think other people would get a lot of benefit if they start using it. And the last thing is, I suppose uh, I am doing a lot of this. I do a lot of work with mid-market firms, so a couple of hundred up to 500 people in helping them use AI well and well at the strategic level, not messing around and not PwC consultant comes in and tells you a few things and then sods off again. I actually come in and I actually had I got an agent to look through all my meeting notes from the last year or two and say, what am I actually doing? And it said, well, you're spending 25% of your time running AI playbooks, AI operating processes and manuals and et cetera, et cetera. It said, but you're spending 75% of your time making that shit actually happen and work when it gets blocked or stopped or confused or the people get upset or whatever. So I'm spending most of my time actually on the people side of making this stuff happen and I'm blocking it, which I think is the more important and interesting side. That's the hard bit, is how do you make these things happen within an organization, within a team, or just within yourself as an individual? Because there's so much for us to get hung up on.
Great stuff. Well, thanks everyone. That wraps up this episode of AI Leadership. If you'd like to be on the podcast or join the Rebel AI community that it all started from, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Sam Joseph. That's sam@neurogrid.com. Please do follow us on Spotify. And of course, you can add questions and comments there or just DM me on LinkedIn and we'll be in your ears again real soon. Finally, big thanks to our great guest today, Adam Martin.
Thank you.